Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to prepare our cartoon head for texture painting. Before we take it over into Mudbox, we're going to have to lay out some UVs for it. And I also have to convert a little bit of the geometry here. I made my eyes with NURBS, and those are not going to get accepted in Mudbox. They need to get converted over to polygons. So my eyes, I'm only going to worry about one. I'm going to actually delete this eye once I have it all painted and just duplicate it over. So I'm just going to focus on the left eye. I have the eye group right here. The cornea, I'm going to go ahead and just hide that. And select the iris, come under Modify, Convert, NURBS to Polygon, and I've got control points selected. And I'm just going to drag and drop that back into the group there. And go ahead and select these two. I'm going to delete the history on them. And go ahead and delete the original one, the NURBS. So we're left with the polygon. Just rename that. Hit 3 on my keyboard so you can look at that. And we've got some triangles here in the center. I'm going to go ahead and just delete every other edge. Quad those. Let's go ahead and isolate the view on that. Come to the back side and do the same thing. Selecting every other edge. Deleting that. Okay. So with this selected, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the UVs on it. I'm going to say under Create UVs, we're going to go ahead and do planar mapping. And I'm just going to say to camera. I've got this lined up here. And we're going to project that. I'm going to open up my UV texture editor. And we should see it right there. And we need to actually split this in half. We're really only going to see the front of the eye. But I'm going to go ahead and just prepare the back side as well and separate the two. So I'm going to double click on the edge here. And cut that. And go to UVs, select the UV there, and Control, right mouse click, say to shell, and we should have them separated now. So this is the back side I just pulled off here, and I'm not too concerned about it. Even leaving it out there is okay. We can go ahead and scale these down and get them to fit in here to the 0 to 1 space. Since we're not seeing the back, it's not that big of a deal. I'm actually going to allocate a little bit more space to this, the front side, and take the back, scale that down, and just tuck it in up over here. Okay, so we've got that. Let's go ahead and close that down. Back to object mode and uncheck isolation. Okay, so we've got the eye prepared now. And let's go ahead and select the face. And all I'm going to do for the face is do automatic mapping. I'm going to click on that. Open up the texture editor and take a look at what we got. So I'm just going to kind of come in here and make sure we don't have any really obvious overlaps. We've got a little bit right here. I'm just going to grab these and clean them up a little. Let's go ahead and open this up. Do the same on both sides here. I'm just going to kind of pull these down. And just looking for some obvious places that are overlapping. I'm not really seeing too many. I think overall that's probably going to work fine for going into Mudbox. Got a little overlapping here. So let's just pull that up. Bring that down. Okay, same thing here. Got a little overlap right there. So I'm not going to worry about sewing these back together. Since we're painting in Mudbox, we're going to be able to hide our seams pretty well. Okay, so that looks okay. Go ahead and close that down. Back to object mode here. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Okay. So I'm going to start off with the head, painting that. So I've got the head selected. I'm going to come under File, Send to Mudbox, Send as New Scene. And we're going to see that it's connecting over here. It says connected to Mudbox. It's launching that. And we should see it pop up here in a second. There it is. Okay, so I'm just going to frame up on that. And it came in pretty well. I didn't have any complaints about triangles or kind of inappropriate polygons. So I'm just going to hit W on the keyboard so you can take a look at the mesh. So if you have any problems with your mesh, if you've got some triangles in there, you either need to go in and clean them up. Another alternative is selecting your face, coming under Mesh, and adding a smooth to that. And it's going to increase the geometry on it, but it's going to quad everything out. Kind of nice. Actually, I do have some triangles here, and it still took it in. So I didn't complain about that. All right, apparently I got lucky. All right, so I'm going to go back to Mudbox here. And just a quick overview on Mudbox. We're looking in the 3D view right here. We've also got UV layout, so those are the UVs that we just laid out. We've got an image browser, and I'm actually going to go ahead and load up my images that I've saved in a directory. Cartoon head, and I've got it under my source images for 3D paint. Actually, I want to go up one and just select the actual folder and say choose. So these are some textures I found. I've got an iris and some different skin textures here that I'm going to use for painting. And the last tab over here is Mudbox Community. There's a lot of nice things in the library over here, so go ahead and check that out. Just coming back to 3D view here. Got some pull down menus on the top here, opening and saving, importing, exporting. We've got some edit menus here. Creating, you can create mesh. Different types of meshes in here, curves, cameras, lights, materials, all of that. The mesh under here, we're going to jump into this in a little bit. A new thing for Mudbox 2012 is PTEX setup, which is quite nice. It's 3D texture painting without laying out UVs. Came out of Disney. I think they used that on Bolt for the first time. So that's new to 2012. It's a very nice addition. We're just going to paint 3D. We already laid out our UVs, so we're not going to go into PTEX on this one, but just know that it's there. We are going to flatten to UV space initially to get our base color down. So we'll come back to that in a second. You can create some curves in here. Display, we've got lighting on, wireframe on. The toggle for that is W. That's the hotkey. We have smooth shade on. We can turn the grid off if we don't want to look at the grid. Okay. Gradient background. A lot of times I like to turn that off and just have a flat grayscale. This is 50% gray, so that's nice when you're painting. This is maps for extracting our maps when we're done here. Rendering, you can create turntables and save the screen image, record movies, and then we've got some windows here as well. Help menu. And over here on the left side, we've got 3 tabs over here. The first one is showing our layers, and we've got 2 areas for layers. We've got sculpting and paint. And I'm not going to do any sculpting on this character here, but if I were, we would see that under here. And we're going to be creating paint layers under the paint area. Object list simply just shows everything you've got in your scene. So this is the head right here. If I select it, it turns yellow. we're just going to deselect. I'm right mouse clicking. It pulls up a marking menu. And so I'm just going to deselect the model now. You get a different marking menu if you're off the object. If you're over the object, you get this one right here. All right, so we'll come back to that in a second. You got your cameras here, your lighting setup, and some default materials. And viewports, this is more for getting into rendering. Probably not going to jump into that. We're going to take it back to Maya and finish it up there. Okay, so I'm just going to come back to layers. Down here we have properties, and we'll see the properties change here when we start selecting different things. And down on the bottom we have our two trays. Over here on the left side, we've got our sculpting tools to start with. So a lot of different sculpting tools. They work quite nice. Paint tools, which we're going to be using. We're mostly just going to use the paintbrush and projection. If you hover over them, you're going to get a little help box that pops up there and tells you what it does. We have posing tools. We don't have a character in here to pose, but just know that you can come in here and pose. It's pretty straightforward. You do have to do some re-sculpting when you pose. Okay, and the next thing over here is select and move. So if I were to click on scale, you would get a manipulator here and you could scale your character up. Okay, so I'm actually going to scale mine up a little bit to work on it. The scale inside of Mudbox is a little bit different than Maya. Quite often you have to scale things up when you bring it over into the Mudbox. Oops, Control Z will undo. So I just grabbed the wrong manipulator there and stretched it. Okay. You can rotate and translate. All right, and select faces and objects. So I'm just going to come back to the paint tool. And the first time you click on your character to paint it, it's going to create a new paint layer. So I'm going to just call this base color. I don't need a 2K, that's a little bit big. I'm going to come down to just a 1K size. I'm going to leave it as a targa, and we are working in diffuse. Just know that there's different channels here. And we're going to start off with diffuse. Just go ahead and click that. You'll see it over here in our layers. Okay. And just quickly over here, we're not going to use a lot of these. We have stamps and stencils, and each of these can work with both the sculpt tools and the paint tools. So there's going to be some areas where some moments where I'm going to use just a standard paintbrush, but I'm going to break it up with a stamp, so it's not just even. And with the stencils, I'm mostly just going to be projecting, so I'm probably not going to use many of these in here right now. Okay, so I'm going to click on the projection brush here, and under my image browser, I'm going to select my first layer of skin here. I'm going to start off with a little bit darker layer, this one right here, and just under here you've got your, opening these up as well, back and forth. If you're kind of going through different directories, you can navigate this way. Over here, these are the ones that we're going to be concerned with, mostly just this one right here. We're going to set up a stencil, but we can also set up stamps and image plane if we wanted to bring in an image plane, and navigating, just flat color. And this one over here, we're not really going to use this as just a refresh. We can set the scale of this. This is just a 1-to-1 scale. You can zoom in and out on it if you want and rotate it around. So I'm going to select the second one over here with the S on it, and that's just setting this image up as a stencil. Come back to my 3D view and we'll see it on top of the character right there. Okay, so the characters, I'm going to hide it, just hitting Q. The character's geometry is a little low for painting on, so I'm going to divide the geometry by holding down the Shift key and hitting D. So you can see it just went up to another level right there. I'm going to go ahead and take it up another level and see how we're doing here. We can test this out before we get going. And I'm also going to assign a new material to this. I want a flatter material than what came on, so I'm going to assign new material, Mudbox material. And you can see it just gave it a kind of skin color right there. I'm going to actually take it back to 50% gray. And the specular, I'm going to take that to black. I don't want any specular on it. Same thing with these. Opacity is going to be at 100%. We want that. And everything else is fine. So just go ahead and close that. So now we've got a nice flat material to paint on. We don't want any specular getting in the way. I'm going to hit W to turn off the mesh. And let's go ahead and try painting on there. And I'm going to hit Q to bring that back up again. Got the projection brush. If I click on that, it brings up the properties for the brush. And this is the brush size. You can see my brush size right here. If I hold down B, I've got hotkeys set up for Maya. If you have Mudbox hotkeys, it's going to be the brackets to increase or decrease the size of the brush. But if you have Maya hotkeys, it's the same as in Maya, holding down B to scale that. And the strength is right here. So I've got something kind of low. I'm going to bump it up to 100% right now. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of flood this. And what I'm going to do, instead of coming on here and I lost my paint layer there. Let me just redo that. Color base. There we go. So instead of doing this and just kind of painting all over my character, a little bit faster way sometimes is to undo that, hide this, is to just come under Mesh, say flatten to UV space, and if you hit, I thought you could hit F on the keyboard, looks like you actually have to zoom into it here. So these are the UVs, and I'm just going to kind of line them up to camera right here, turn on my projection, and zooming in too far. There we go. You can also adjust the size and rotation and position of what you're projecting. So I'm going to kind of scale this down a little bit. I'm kind of looking at the scale of the texture itself. It's kind of noisy, so I'm going to bring that down. Kind of cover this area up, rotate a little bit. So I've got this shell covered right there, and increase my brush size, actually bringing that down, and I'm just going to paint right on there. So this is a kind of efficient way of covering things very quickly with a base color, and you're not going to be fighting any stretching that often occurs. So I'm going to keep my my projection at the same point here, and then just start covering up different areas. That way I know I've got the proper scale that I need. I'm just going to rotate it around. And this might leave us with a few seams. Probably going to be pretty difficult to see, but we may have a few seams to go back and kind of touch up. And these right here, I'm just going to hit them. Same thing over here. The little ones are not quite sure if I'm covering all of those. Okay. This group right here. And this last little group right here. Okay. Okay, so I may have missed a little bit here and there on some of these smaller ones. We'll notice it right away when we go back to 3D view on our model. So I've got that covered. Hide that for right now and come back under mesh unflatten from UV space. Let's find our character here. There it is. So I've missed a few little places here and there. And you can see some areas where we've got some seams showing. But I've got kind of a nice coverage right here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that back on. And take my brush size up. And I'm going to bring my strength down a little bit. And just go ahead and kind of hit some of these areas. Not worry too much about that. He's got hairs, so that's going to cover that area up. And just kind of hitting around the eyes here. I missed a little area right here. There are a lot of little pieces around the eyes, so we're getting a little bit of patchiness, so cleaning that up. And I could have turned symmetry on here on X, and it would be doing the same on both sides. I don't paint a lot with symmetry on, just because in a base coat like this, it's okay, but once you start getting into kind of painting features on your character, you don't want them identical on both sides. Makes it pretty obvious that it's CG and been painted in a computer. It kind of takes away from the organic look of the character. And I've got a little piece right here that's not really accepting. I might have an overlap right there. I might have to jump back out into Mudbox, and I think I might have a couple little places right there to fix. Okay, some of these right here. Got a seam coming up here. Just widen my brush up. So you can see as I'm painting here, especially along the center, how it is mirroring on the other side and creating a pattern. And that's the sort of thing that I like to avoid. So I often paint in the center of the character. I'll turn off symmetry and just paint straight up the center and make sure I don't have mirroring sides. Nose there. Okay. Around the face, the mouth. Check under here. Okay. Now for areas like this, you can go ahead if you're working on the side. And the ears are not too noticeable. I'm going to go ahead and kind of turn this around here. Got some more seams showing in the back. I'm going to cover those up. All right. Let's just check the neck back here. Turn this off. Back of the neck so we don't have a pattern showing up. Okay, and just check the ears. Got a little seam on the ear there. Looks like we got a little bit of stretching going on right here. Yeah, we've got a little stretching. That's a problem about the correct back in Maya. Got an overlap going on there. I had the same thing over here, so there's some stretching right there that's going to have to get corrected as well. All right. Overall, kind of a decent base on here. Right there. Eyelids. Okay. Just checking around the eyes here one last time. Okay. So let's go ahead and turn that off. All right. So there he is. I'm seeing a little bit of symmetry right there when I still had that on. Okay, so offline I'm going to have to go in and correct some of these little places right there. If you have similar problems where you've got some overlapping with your UVs back in Maya, just go ahead and make those corrections and update it back into Mudbox. And we've got kind of our base layer right there, and we'll come back and start adding some more layers and some detailing around the eyes and cheeks in the next lesson. Okay, I'm back here in Maya, just correcting some of the problems I had with my UVs. I had a little bit of overlapping. You can see if I zoom in real tight here, I've got some very closely placed edges. That was to create some creases around the eyes there. So if I come in over here, zooming in, that's this area right here. You should be able to see the point. There's the point right there. So all I'm going to do is just kind of move these. If you right mouse click, you can select the UVs and just click on them. W on the keyboard will bring up that move tool. And I'm just going to kind of space these around a little bit more evenly. Something like that. And even pull these like that. And that all looks a little bit better. It's cleaned up. There's another area here I could probably give a little bit more space to. So let's just shift selecting there, grabbing that one. Pull that over. Okay, I've gone through most of the rest of it and kind of evenly spaced things out where I had a lot of creases, mostly around the eyes, a little bit around the mouth here. Wasn't too bad there. And I don't have much detail on the ears, so I wasn't getting too many problems right there. Those are typical places where you're going to have areas that may stretch just because you've got very closely placed edges. And it needs a little bit more detail and as far as unfolding goes. All right, so that corrects all of that, and I'm just going to close that down, right mouse click, go back to object mode, 3 on the keyboard for that, and everything looks good there. So I'm going to just continue on. I'm going to send it back to Mudbox. You can select previously sent objects and just send it over there. Also, mine isn't on right now. I actually have Mudbox closed for this, but you would update current scene, and that would send this back over there. If yours is open, just go ahead and update to current scene, and I'll see you in the next lesson as we continue with painting in Mudbox.